Hey everyone, Ryan Reynolds here with Keller Williams Consultants Realty, coming to you with your January 2022 real estate market update. So a couple things I want to go over today. One is what the market is looking like right now, what we're seeing going on. And the second thing is kind of what we expect to see this spring and then this summer. So first off, this year we've listed 2 houses already. Both of them went into contract within about 4 days. So things are still moving very fast. One of them that was under 300,000 had about 110 showings in the 4 days. So our seller's experience would have been, if they had been living in the house, would have been kind of rough because they were literally going to have to be out of their house the whole time. But because it was an empty house, they were able to weather through it. The result was in that house, the first one of those two was actually a $275,000 house in Dublin. We had about 105, 110 showings. Had, I think, 24 offers, and that all happened in about 4 days on market. The result I can't really talk about yet because it hasn't been finalized, but it did sell well above list price. The second house is actually here in Columbus as well, and it was listed at $369,000 and also had a bunch of showings, not quite as much as the other one did, but had 17 offers and in contract way above list price. So what does that tell us about the market? Well, January is typically a pretty slower time, so there's not very much on the market normally, and this year is no exception. It's definitely very little homes on the market. The homes that are there are getting a lot of competition for people to buy them, and I expect that would have kind of been what we had seen last fall or maybe last summer, and that's actually continuing. I kind of thought things were going to cool off a little bit, but we're just not seeing the inventory hit the market yet. The other thing it tells us is that I would expect most of the spring to be the same way, and until we get a bunch of houses coming on. So typically there's a big bunch of houses that come on in January, which has already happened, and those have probably been already absorbed. And then there's a second batch of houses that'll come on kind of whenever the weather breaks in February, but really not until probably April till the majority of people start getting their house ready. There's actually an opportunity right in there between whenever the weather breaks and whenever everybody else puts their house on the market, that if you're thinking about selling, I call it the gap time. But that's really a great time to sell because even in a normal market, that creates kind of a micro seller's market, which this year will be no exception. Even though it's a seller's market already, it'll probably even be crazier at that point. Second thing, what do we expect later in the spring? So interest rates are probably going to remain pretty low, but the Federal Reserve is going to start cranking those up mid-year, and wouldn't be surprised if they indicate that they might even crank them up early in the spring because inflation numbers have been coming in higher than they really expected. That will probably start to slow down the buying, but initially it probably will put a fire under people who are going to buy, who are going to think they're going to miss out. So they're probably going to hit the market, and so this spring is probably going to be pretty crazy. This summer, typically things start to slow down in July. Middle of July, people are getting ready to go back to school and going to summer trips and stuff like that, and so it's not as busy a time. And I pretty well expect that to continue. The other thing I'm hearing from some of the agents that work with that do a lot of foreclosures and short sales is that they are expecting the foreclosures that have been really pent up for a couple of years to finally start hitting the market. When that happens, it'll bring some more inventory on, which might flatten the pricing and make some of the craziness go away, but I don't expect to think it's not going to flip it to a buyer's market. It won't be anything like 2008 to 2012, but I think it's going to be, it'll be maybe a little easier to buy in late summer, but by that time interest rates will start to go up, so it might cost you more. So what does all that mean? It means that if you're thinking about selling, this is a great time to do it, and that you probably have some opportunities early in the springtime here, or late winter, I guess. And that later in the year, it might be a little harder to sell a house because there'll be homes coming on the market, but I don't think it'll be very hard. It'll be harder than now. You may not get as many offers to choose from, but likely you'll still start to see, or still be seeing multiple offers at that point. If you're a buyer, then it's going to continue to be difficult. You're going to continue to need to be pre-approved at minimum, probably have to have what we call an appraisal gap. In other words, some cash to cover the difference between the appraised amount of the house and the value of the house that you're purchasing, or what the contract price would be. And you may have to continue to look at things like maybe a waiving of remedy period, so you're not asking the seller to fix anything, or maybe even offering some other incentives to sellers. So it's going to continue to be a tough year for being a buyer. That said, if you're buying and selling in the same market, it doesn't really matter. It may be feel very scary and be hard, but we do all the time where we help people sell a house and then buy a house. And it can be a little bit tight, but we're able to get the logistics worked out, and we're able to usually get top dollar for selling the house. And we do our best to negotiate a great deal for you on the buy side too. So if you're even thinking about selling this year and you want me to stop by, or one of our team members talk to you about maybe getting a search set up to buy a house, please reach out. We're here to help. And just remember the Ryan Reynolds team, unlimited opportunities and exceptional experiences. Have a great day.